guys? Welcome to the StarCommand podcast. I'm David Seymour here with Alan Bragg, bringing you all the latest NFL news. Uh, if you could, before we get started, hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom of your screen, share it with some friends, and help us get this thing rolling. All right, Alan, this past week was a busy week, both for the country and the NFL. It was the NFL trade deadline. We had quite a few trades. Pittsburgh actually made two. They traded a couple of draft picks to get Mike Williams from the New York Jets, who fell out of favor with Aaron Rodgers. And then they grabbed Preston Smith from Green Bay, which was kind of interesting, as he's a guy that started 90% of the snaps for Green Bay. So that was an interesting one. My Washington Commanders went out and got Marshawn Lattimore to help out that secondary. You know, I've been screaming for secondary help since the season started, so I was happy to see that. Detroit did what we all thought Detroit was going to do, and they traded for Zadarius Smith from Cleveland. And Dallas and Cincinnati both made some puzzling moves. Dallas trading a fourth-round pick for wide receiver Jonathan Wingo from the Carolina Panthers, and then Cincinnati getting Khalil Herbert from
The Bears.
the Bears. Yeah, a guy that was inactive. Maybe he helped out the running back room. I don't know. Chase Brown had a big fumble Thursday night, so maybe they saw something in him. But it was kind of a head scratcher because it doesn't. Those two just really don't move the needle for me, and I don't know how much the Mike Williams and Preston Smith for Pittsburgh really moved the needle for me either. For me personally, I just they have a plethora of pass rushers, so they really just added a rotational piece. And then Mike
Yeah,
Williams, you never know if he's going to stay healthy or how many snaps he's actually going to play. But I think Washington and Detroit vastly improved themselves. Obviously, Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson going down, they're in win now. We can make it to the Super Bowl, and they very much look like they could. So going and adding, you know, not an Aiden Hutchinson level talent, but a guy that can still get you over the next few games 5 to 7 sacks and at least make the quarterback nervous. And then Washington with Marshawn Lattimore. Look, our secondary, the worst in the league, right? We give up the highest passer rating to quarterback. We give up the most yards. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, so he's not going to play this week. Still trying to recover from that, but you don't get him for this week, right? You didn't get him for now. You got him for a playoff push in the future. You got him because we're going to play teams like Dallas with CeeDee Lamb and Philly with AJ Brown and Smith, so we're getting him for the future. He's still got 2 years left on his contract. And it's fairly affordable, $18 million over the next 2 years. None of it's guaranteed money. So if he completely bombs for the rest of the season, we're not tied to him. So I think it really addresses a super need. Really, those two moves, the Washington and Detroit, I think hit the needle all the way to the red, right? Those were big moves for teams that are looking to make a push.
absolutely. They got two guys that are still putting up good numbers. Lattimore's got 30 tackles on the year, and the interceptions aren't there, but people avoid him.
Right.
He doesn't get thrown at. And I really thought in week two when we played the Saints, I thought we had a huge advantage because Lattimore wasn't playing. However, needed our defense. So we that was kind of a miss. Our whole defense didn't play that week. But the huge move for you guys. Glad y'all are going all in. We talked about it earlier this week about it's great to see you guys going all in. You knew what you needed, and you're striking while the iron's hot. And
Right.
why not when you've got some momentum, you've got a quarterback in there that's fully confident and go get what they need. Detroit, same thing. They're in that Super Bowl window. And I had talked about previous how why not reach out to the Dallas Cowboys and say, hey, what do you want for one of these running backs? Would you give up Micah? Would you give up Lawrence? Well, they went out and got a veteran, that 10-year vet, that has 5 sacks on the year. And it's just going to solidify that rotation because they haven't looked terrible since Hutchinson's been
No.
out. So they had a rotation player and they get better. There's a couple teams that are in that Super Bowl window that are hungry for a Super Bowl, right? So why not get everything they need? You mentioned the Pittsburgh thing. That's just strictly rotation. Mike Williams isn't going to move the needle for a team,
Right.
but he can make plays. And if he can stay healthy, he has not been able to stay healthy, I think, the last 4 years in the NFL. But and then the outside linebacker they added, just Steelers are they churn and burn outside linebackers and blitzers. So just somebody positionally, those trades were made last minute, but I still go back to Buffalo winning with getting Amari Cooper,
Yeah.
and then the Jets as well by making the move for Devontae. That don't know if that's going to work out, but the two teams that really swung for the fence before the trade deadline and
Yeah.
really hit their prospective clubs. Uh,
Well, and
and
I
then
think another one that you could put on there that happened, before the actual deadline is Minnesota, right? They lose Ferguson for the season, their left tackle,
they're
and
off.
they
They got the
immediately
offensive tackle, Cam Robinson.
Cam Robinson from
Yeah,
Jacksonville, which is
that was my next
it's a
note.
which is a real tricky, right? It's really rare to see a starting caliber uh offensive lineman get moved at the trade deadline, right? Obviously, the trade deadline hasn't been a huge deal my whole life. Like I don't think until the Christian McCaffrey trade from Carolina to San Francisco, I think that's when the trade deadline actually became a thing. That was the first time we saw a guy in the middle of the season leave and go to another team and make a huge impact. And so
Yeah,
I
the
think
owners in
it's
the owners in the NFL were kind of like fantasy football owners, scared to give up those assets, right?
right,
And then now it's getting to where, I'll do it. I'll take a fourth round pick next year or a fourth and a fifth, and I'll give you this huge asset because my years we're not going anywhere.
right, right. And so I was a little surprised though that Cleveland wasn't bigger sellers at the trade deadline, like only getting rid of Zadarius Smith and Amari Cooper throughout the year. And I think of it more of I feel like sometimes these owners and these organizations owe things to players, right? You got a guy like Myles Garrett that's been absolutely loyal to your organization. He's toed the company line. No matter how bad Deshaun Watson was playing, he's always had the team's back, right? And you've rewarded him handsomely contract wise, but he's getting to the tail end of his career. He's hitting that 30-year-old mark, so he's going to start falling off soon. I feel like that they almost owed it to him to maybe shop him around to a contender and let him see what it was like to be on a winning organization. You know, what they're going to do with Deshaun Watson, I'm not sure. If he's healthy enough to come back, they have to let him come back because it's like a $90 million cap hit if they decide to release him. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I kind of expected them to be bigger sellers and see some bigger names leave out of there and go get an opportunity to play somewhere because they're really going to have to rebuild that whole thing from the ground up. But
For sure. Those poor Cleveland fans. Deshaun Watson's done. He's done there, whether he plays or again or not. The locker room's given up on him. The fans have given up on him, and that it's a mess. And to see how many assets you could have got, I don't know. Do you give up on your guy that you took number one overall and Myles Garrett and get back? What do you get back? Well, I'd like to know what those feelers were from other teams. Were the people willing to give up a second round pick for him? Because you'd have to do that to convince your fan base
right.
that we're not
Yeah,
giving
you'd
up
have
in the
to get
next
a
five
second or
years.
first. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the hard part in this for owners and general managers and coaches, right? Is how do I navigate trading to help me build this team for the future, but also not making it look like I've just completely given up on my fans to giving up on the whole season to my fans so that they actually still buy tickets and come to the games,
Yeah, and not just
right?
this year. Like,
Right.
we get it when everyone can understand you selling out for the second half of the season for a good draft pick. But when you're selling guys like Garrett, you're saying next year,
Yeah.
the next year,
Right.
we're not we've been able to rely on our defense the past 3, 4 years. and be the one of the top defenses in the league. But we're giving that up now.
Yeah.
We got the worst possible quarterback in the NFL we could have gotten, and now we're just basically giving up on the defense. So as a Cleveland fan, again, poor Cleveland, to go through this every year. But hey,
Right.
I tell them, Commanders fans, it can turn it around. You can.
Yeah, you can.
You
I
can.
think it starts at the very top, right? And you've got a guy like Jimmy Haslam that owns the Cleveland Browns, right? And he just, I feel like him and him and David Pepper, right, of the Carolina Panthers. I feel the pain of those fans because right, I sat through that for 30 years with an owner that thought that an NFL team was a fantasy football team, right? I just go out and sign all these big names and they're magically gonna go on the field and produce all these results, you
Right.
know. And it generally doesn't work. You know, it works that way in the NBA, works that way in Major League Baseball. But it does not work that way in the NFL. You know, schemes matter. I remember we gave Dana Stubblefield $100 million, and he was a guy that ran, you know, him and Albert Hainsworth, you know, gave them both close to $100 million, and they both came from 4-3 defensive systems, and we brought them into a 3-4 system to make them play nose tackle, and neither one of them were good at that position. Right? That scheme didn't fit their skill set. You know, we're bringing players in at the tail end of their careers. You know, Carolina with the Adam Thielen acting like that's going to be your number one wide receiver. You know, we used to bring in Deion Sanders when he was suffering from turf toe and Bruce Smith when he had maybe a year left to play. You know, and so I understand those fan feelings, right? Like I know what it's like to just sit there and year after year make it look like you've won the off season, and then come the regular season, it's you're absolute
Yeah,
garbage.
and you called it. You started from the top. You changed ownership. You changed head coach. You drafted a quarterback.
Yeah,
That's how you do it. It just clean slate. Let's start fresh.
right. I mean, if you look at
Heck, you
Washington
even
this
changed their
year,
name.
yeah, well, we didn't want to do
We
that.
didn't want, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember for probably the last 10 or 15 years that Daniel Snyder owned the team, that was the only good thing that I could say about him. Let's keep him there because he refuses to change the name. Some other owner may come in and want to change the name. Well, then when the name got changed, I was like, screw it. Dan, sell the team and sell it now. Get out of there because whatever you were good for, you are no longer good for that. So,
No more
but I
uses.
mean, and if you look at the way Washington's done it, right? We're in line to probably have the NFL Executive of the Year with Adam Peters, right? With the way that he's built this and turned it around. Coach of the Year with Dan Quinn, complete turnaround, and possibly the Rookie of the Year should be. I mean, I feel like he's running away with it. That Hail Mary against Chicago about sealed the deal. You know,
Oh, he
the only other
absolutely has.
rookie,
Caleb stepped back. Marvin Harrison's not doing his thing. There's nobody competing with him.
no. And while Bo Nix is playing really well, if you look at the stats, they're just not comparable,
Right.
right? And
He's got a great defense.
yeah, yeah, Jaden Daniels is doing this with a subpar defense. You know, it, they're just finding ways to win. You know, Cliff Kingsbury, I don't even know if Coordinator of the Year is an award, but Cliff Kingsbury may win that. You know, if it is a real thing. So it just, I don't know. It's kind of been fun to watch, and then to go see us go out and make a trade like I guess I still have some PTSD because you know I've been screaming since the beginning of the season that we need it. We need
Yep.
a corner. We need a corner. We do not have the cornerbacks to make a real run or to be real competitive. And I really just thought we weren't going to do anything. Like we were creeping up on the trade deadline, and I didn't hear any rumors about us making any calls or in the market for anything. Like I saw a bunch of stuff, and then I'd find something else that said that was a false rumor, and I was like, okay, same old Washington. We're not going to do anything. We need to get better. There's guys out there, and I knew Marshawn Lattimore was out there. You could have gone to Cleveland and probably gotten Greg Newsome or Denzel Ward, or you know there were guys out there that were going to be available, and for the right price, you could have had him, and we paid a little bit of a high price to get Marshawn Lattimore, but he's still under 30. He
Right.
didn't have any guaranteed money left, though I do believe with what we paid him, we're going to keep him around for a couple of years. But you had a veteran presence in a position of need that instantly, when he gets on the field, makes every other cornerback better, right? Because now you can leave him one on one with whoever he's covering, right? And whatever side of the field he's on, that's pretty much done and locked up. Might be a few catches. He's not Deion Sanders where they just don't throw to him, but he's good enough to cover one side of the field.
Yeah, he's in between Revis Island though and Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
You know
he's
what I mean?
somewhere in the
Like,
middle of that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
He
and with doing that, now we get to roll coverages to help out St. Juste and the rookie, and the rookie gets to move back to the slot, which is where he's the most comfortable. St. Juste gets to become the number 2 corner, which is where he should be playing. He's not a bad corner. He's just not a number 1.
right.
So you kind of get to move your defense back to the way it should be and get these guys playing in the positions that they're going to feel the most comfortable in, that they're going to thrive in. And that defense is really just going to get better. And they've been playing out of their mind the last
Well, it
couple of
was
weeks.
you guys, first seeing it, I was like, gosh, they got lucky, right? Dang Commanders, they got lucky, but luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Right.
You guys were prepared. You've been preparing, right? And you've been having a season that the way you're having, and then opportunity struck when the Saints decided they don't want to win any more football games. And there's a veteran guy that kind of like the Myles Garrett thing where he deserves to go to a team that can compete and help a locker room instead of sitting around watching the Saints dumpster fire. So not luck at all. You have to have that, be prepared and have an opportunity. And Commanders are taking full advantage, and it's gonna be an exciting finish between you guys and the Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna come down to the very end, I think. Watching the Eagles last week a little bit against Jacksonville, and they were smoking them, just
Yep.
blowing them out the way they should have been. And then somehow I switched games and I look up and Jacksonville, within a touchdown of them or 5 points or
They
whatever
had
it
the
was. And
ball with the chance to tie. I mean, driving.
right. And, Trevor Lawrence throws an interception. That's a
Yeah.
team, right? Man, Jacksonville. Like they just
Shocker.
paid this dude $55 million a year and
And they got
he
talent. They got studs. They got studs
they
on
do.
offense. They got dudes on defense. They've got a good kicker. It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. They hit.
I
I don't
heard
know.
I heard somebody on the radios that said that Jacksonville's going to have a really bad day today because their backup quarterback's going to come in and play as well as their starting quarterback did, and that's going to be a problem because you just paid this guy $55 million, and if you're getting the same thing from the
So
guy that you're
you
paying
you
nothing
you
to,
said you heard this about the Cowboys
know about the Jaguars.
because that rings true for us as well. I mean, except we paid 60 million. The
Yeah,
only
yeah,
false statement that you had in that was the money. But
yeah,
we got that same problem today, and it's already been said by plenty of people. Is it's going to be bad because Cooper Rush is 5-1 as a starter
yeah.
for
As a
them.
starter,
So he comes in, and somehow by the time he finishes, and we're sitting at, I mean, I don't see it happening, but anyway, we're 7-7. Like he goes 4-2. Just think about that. We're 7-7 back in the playoff picture, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. CD's having Pro Bowl, putting up Pro Bowl numbers. Somehow we find a running game in the defense because we're not causing turnovers. Defense is just not the same as it's been in previous years, and that's the main thing is
no.
we're not getting turnovers.
Well, and I think so. Let's start with the defense, right? Because the offense is lack of talent at the running back position, lack of scheme from the offensive coordinator, and lack of weapons other than CeeDee Lamb,
No
right?
scheme. The
Right.
scheme is
There's no,
ridiculous.
yeah. And so if we switch gears to looking at your defense, remember just earlier we were talking about how Dan Snyder would go out and get players that didn't fit the scheme that they were starting. How about the Cowboys going out and getting a defensive coordinator that doesn't fit and his scheme doesn't fit the roster of players that you have? Remember, Dan Quinn was your guys' defensive coordinator, and he built that defense very similar to what the Seattle Seahawks, Legion of
To
Boom
be
used to do.
fast and can get
Fast
the ball.
and create turnovers. And he schemed it up so that the coverages were right for, Trayvon Diggs a couple of years ago led the league in interceptions and interception returns for a touchdown. Then last year when Trayvon Diggs was hurt, it was Deron Bland led the
Yeah.
league in interception, set a record for most interception returns for a touchdown in one season. You know, the scheme was what created all of that with the players, right? We have this scheme. We went and got all of the players that we know that fit this and can do all of the things that we want them to do. And then he leaves, and you don't find somebody that can scheme it up the same way, right? You go out and get Mike Zimmer, who plays a completely different style of defense, and those players do not fit that scheme. And unlike the newer, younger coaches that we have, he hasn't tried to change that scheme. He's trying to continuously fit the square peg in the round hole, and make these guys play his scheme instead of trying to tailor whatever scheme he wants to run to the players that he has on his roster. And we see that all the time, usually, right? We usually see that on the offensive side of the ball with coordinators, right?
And we
I'm
don't
going to
we don't
make this
have the run
quarterback,
thumpers that for the Mike
right?
Zimmer defense. We don't have those.
Right.
Micah's not that. Micah's get after the quarterback. We went out and picked up Hendricks to try to be our middle linebacker. We lost Van Der Esch. If we are when we knew we couldn't stop the run, but we did other things great, right?
Right.
We got the brakes blown off of us 3 or 4 times last year. We all knew what it was. A team could come in, be physical with us, i.e., San Francisco, Green
Green
Bay,
Bay.
I'm sure there was Baltimore or something. There's somebody else. Detroit was tough because they could
Yeah.
run the ball, but we did certain other things so well. We got after the passer. We pass defended, got turnovers. Special teams was elite. And then this year
Right.
we're like, okay, now we're going to change it and we're going to stop the run. But you can't. Like how?
Right.
Where's
Right. You don't have the personnel for that. And so your defense is used to playing with a lead and being able to play free and
right?
fast, and you
Which
have no lead because you no longer
which
have a running game.
which is why we take the ball. We for the first time in Atlanta, we won the toss, I think, for 4 straight weeks before Atlanta, and we had received the opening kickoff. And that boy did that backfire because I don't think we went 3 and out 3 of the 4. We or might have gotten a field goal on one of the drives, but here we are, taking the ball because we know we need a lead. Our head coaches were also obviously discussing that we need to get a lead, and we're taking the opening kickoff, doing nothing with it, giving it to the other team. But we did last week. We did defer and went up, ended up stopping Atlanta, and then went up 3-0. So maybe we try that again this week and defer. Can stop Philly.
Yeah. Well, stopping Philly is going to be the tough thing, right? Everybody, Saquon's out of his mind this year. Did you see the backwards hurdle this dude?
Oh yeah.
I mean, trying to do the double spin move, decides to abort the second spin and just backwards hurdle. I mean, like, you know, I know you didn't watch it, but I watched that HBO Max. Uh, what did they have? It was the like Hard Knocks front office edition, right? Where it was the Giants front office is they were navigating, do we resign Saquon? Who are we going to draft? And it was very interesting to see all the inner workings and the conversations that these guys have. It was funny. We're just talking about defensive coordinators. They brought in a new defensive coordinator, and they're like, "What if we went out and got Brian Burns?" He's like, "I can do whatever you want me to do with a guy like Brian Burns. These are the positions that I need to make my defense work." And it was fascinating to watch all of this front office stuff happen. Well, John Mara, when he finds out that there's an opportunity that Saquon may be signing with the Eagles, the Giants GM's like, Joe Shine's like, oh, it's not going to happen. They can't afford him either. I guess Chicago's driving up the price. And Shine says, Mr. Mara says, well, if he signs with the Eagles, I'm going to have nightmares about it. He says, I've been doing this too long. I've seen it happen. This is not going to be good. I'm not going to be able to sleep if he signs with the Eagles. That man must be super tired.
No doubt.
He's been over there. I mean, They have they
He
have used
may he
him.
may catch it on a random Thursday night out to dinner. The random fan saying, "Hey, dumbass, how can you let Saquon go? You know, out on the
And
golf
he
course."
didn't want to. He
Uh,
didn't
uh,
want. He's like, "Are we sure we can't figure out a way to sign Saquon? Like he's the best player we have. He's our most favorite player for all of our fans. Like, is there? Are you sure we can't?" And Joe says, "Oh, we're not gonna. We didn't sign a quarterback to a $40 million a year contract for him to turn around and hand the ball off to a $15 million a year running back." And now you watch the Giants offense and what Saquon's doing over at the Eagles, and you're like,
yeah,
"Are you sure? I mean,
one of these
if you
athletes
just
is
if you just look at the Cowboys backfield, that's $65 million right there between the running backs probably making a collective of $5 million and Dak making 60. I'm
right.
sure they would love that. I'm sure they would love to have somebody to turn around and hand the ball off
Absolutely.
to.
One of those athletes does not look the same, right? That quarterback, we definitely see the money doesn't balance, but the eye test. Hold on.
Yeah. So I don't know. I look at the Giants and I'm like, how do you let this dude like just go? I mean, and especially to that team that's already so talented. Like the only saving grace is that Nick Sirianni's an absolute idiot, and you can't trust him to coach the team properly. I mean, in that Jacksonville game, they were going for two, and I'm taking points off the board to retry different. Like it was, I mean, it was painful to. I felt sort of bad for Philly fans. Like I'm like, you got all this talent and an idiot coach. Like,
Yeah, we always got to hang our hat on this. Philly's going to get in Philly's way
yeah,
because they're
which
uber
is usually
talented.
what happened.
Yeah, they got all the talent in the world. They across the board, but somehow they're
Yeah,
going to get in their own way.
most definitely. Dude, I don't know what to do about fantasy. I'm struggling. Like, uh, I think Brian Robinson Jr. is for sure out. So that messed me up again this week. They're
I
talking
saw you
about
went out and
Tyreek
picked
Hill's
up.
out.
Who'd you go out and pick up recently?
Um, uh, I don't even remember. I was just trying some things because I ain't had no help from my wide receiver room
Oh,
all
you
season.
Xavier Leggett.
Yes, yeah, I did. I did pick him up. And I picked up another wide receiver too. Um, trying to fill that um
Can we still
wide
trade in
receiver running
fantasy?
back room. With that?
Can we still trade in fantasy?
I think so. I was looking at the league rules. I'm pretty sure it said no deadline.
Oh, sweet. Because I'm about to give up. I was about to drop Xavier Worthy. Not that I
Hmm.
don't know if he'd help you. I mean, he just sits my bench every week. And I got
Yeah.
Nico Collins coming off IR, so I got big boy problems in my leagues. I got
Yeah, man, I had a stretch there where I was doing really well, but I was still not getting any production out of my wide receiver room. And then, having three running backs that were really producing 20 plus points almost every game was what was really winning it for me. And then between Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins, I was able to get enough points out of the running back, and Denver's defense was always, you know, get me some pretty big points. And so scoring a lot and winning a lot. And then Brian Robinson's been hurt the last couple of weeks. Even with Tua back, Tyreek Hill's not putting up numbers. Now he might be out too. It's man, I'm
Yeah, and he's got that Monday night game, so you got to have him in the flex. Get him out of the wide receiver position.
yeah,
Get him in the flex, and have you somebody if you're gonna keep him in there, which I took him out, and when the league I have him in, I took him out. It's not worth waiting until Monday night, and then he doesn't play because of that wrist injury.
yeah. I may have to just take him out and let him hit the bench.
Because what do you got? You got Keenan Allen, you could play for him, and that's really it. If you got, yeah, you got one option.
Yeah. I may try to pick up a wide receiver here in the I just don't know who else is out there, man. So I
Yeah,
just
12
know
team
that
league's tough. Well, like I said, I'm about to go drop. Let me see what I mean, I don't know. want to trade you because I don't need it. I don't, like
Yeah, but
I,
if you were just going to drop him anyways, you could trade me whoever that and then drop them.
yeah, but who can you afford to get rid of right now?
What for Xavier Worthy? Probably,
You need your backup tight end,
yeah.
Laporta. I mean, unless you want to go one tight end, you need Robinson. How long's Robinson out for?
We don't know at this point. He was a game time decision last week, and then he didn't even make it to the game time decision this week.
Mm.
So,
You got to keep Jacobs.
but
He's on a bye. You got to keep him. I mean, you got to keep two quarterbacks. Some people argue this quarterback thing because they're like, as of right now, I have Lamar Jackson and I have Tua's on IR, but I got to get him off IR too. Somehow it's letting me keep him on IR.
hmm,
And I'm like, man, I really don't want to drop anybody. I've already got to drop somebody for Nico Collins. And you start thinning out your bench with backup quarterbacks and backup tight ends, where are your studs for your buys and injuries? So
yeah,
a buddy of mine was telling me about, go look at who's available for quarterback right now. It's not that much of a big drop off for whoever you're trying to keep. Now you have Sam Darnold who has an elite year and Kirk Cousins who can have elite games.
right.
So I don't know that the backup right now, if I go to players, quarterback, let's see who's available. Caleb Williams, who's ranked the 21st quarterback. Joe
Yeah,
Flacco,
he's
who's ranked.
regressing every chance he gets. Caleb is
Bo Nix is the highest ranked one. He's 16th ranked, and he is projected to get 11 points this week. So, you'd be looking at getting Bo Nix or taking a shot on Caleb Williams, giving you a 4 or 5 touchdown game.
right.
So I think that,
Yeah, so I'm like,
keeping that backup quarterback to me makes a lot of sense. I want to have Tua in
right.
there for anything for just Lamar's bye week.
And I've been trying to do a good job of switching out Sam and Kurt depending on who they're playing. Like Sam Darnold's playing Jacksonville this week. Pretty sure that he's going to score a lot of points, right? Their secondary's
Yep.
not great. Mac Jones is going to come in. That defense for Minnesota's been killing most quarterbacks this year. So they're not going to be able to move the ball very well to begin with. So now Sam Darnold's going to have a lot of opportunities to gain points there. So yeah, it's been a
Yeah, man, it's
struggle.
rough. I think you were sitting in the 4 seed for
I was
several
actually sitting in the 3 seed
three
for
seed.
like 3 weeks in a row. Yeah, and that wide receiver room, man, it's killing me. Maybe Keenan Allen has a big day today against the Patriots, but
Well, you better put him in the lineup.
yeah.
Because right now he's having a big day on your bench. Yeah, the
All
Tyreek
right, you
thing
ready
hurts
to?
though. The Tyreek thing's tough because he's a top three pick in fantasy. And
Right.
he's been nothing even close to that. Not even the weeks when
No,
Tua was in there early. Was he putting
no,
up 25, his 25, 30 point weeks? He's not gotten that this year.
no.
But as we
Yeah,
complain
it's
about Tyreek, there's everyone that has had Christian McCaffrey.
yeah, yeah.
So
All those guys that drafted him and put him on the IR for 10 weeks. He comes back today, so they're finally going to get to put him in the lineup.
yep. Oh wow. Nice.
So you ready to get some picks in for today?
Yeah, let's do it. It's a weird week. I'm going with my NFL picks this week. I'm going by what I have learned statistically and what the experts say.
Okay.
I don't trust the teams, but it's the point spreads that matter because I was informed earlier in the year that teams that get 6 and 6.5 in the NFL have a ridiculous win rate. And that's because for some reason the gamblers out there, when it's 7 or more, those teams for some reason cover. There's something that Vegas knows and why they
Right.
keep it at 6.5. So this week, let me get those 6 and 6.5s out of the way. Carolina plus 6.5 again. So like Carolina won for me. Was it last week though? 2 weeks ago? I had them picked when the game they won. Who did they beat? Carolina or it's New Orleans.
Yeah.
I picked them to
Yeah.
I had them. I had them on that game. So let's go Carolina. New England's plus 6. Forget who they're playing.
Chicago.
Playing Chicago. Okay. So New England +6, Tampa Bay +6.5. Like what they did
Sure.
against Kansas City. They're going to play the Niners. Another tough game, but I'll take again 6.5 and just see what happens. And then
Okay.
Detroit money line and Buffalo money line. I'm throwing my two well-oiled machines in there to win the game. And I don't know, I probably shouldn't even be taking Detroit money line. It's only the spread's only 3.5, but that is so got Detroit money line, Buffalo money line, Carolina +6.5, New England +6, and Tampa Bay +6.5.
I like it. So, I've got Buffalo -3.5 against Indianapolis. I think Indy's defense is just a little shoddy. I think Buffalo's gonna go out and put up big points. I have Denver +7.5 at Kansas City. Um, Kansas City's just not really blown anybody out this year. It's a division game. Denver got them last year and actually beat them pretty bad in Mile High. And again, Kansas City's just not caring about style points anymore, right? They don't have the offensive weapons to do that, and they don't care if they win the game by one. Their goal is to just get to the playoff, right? That's all they're trying to do is get to these are all practice games. So I like Denver +7.5 just for the simple fact that I don't think Kansas City's blowing anybody out. I have the Cardinals money line against the New York Jets, and I have the Lions -3.5 against Houston and Atlanta -3.5 playing New Orleans.
Nice.
So
I
that
like those.
is,
I like Arizona too. I like what Arizona's doing, the way they're projecting, and the Jets are doing the opposite. I do like that matchup. It's like the teams, Arizona, Denver. Arizona just laid some duds when you thought they had it figured out. They just scare me as a team
yeah,
to bet on. And then Denver, I can't get it out of my head when they played Baltimore a couple weeks ago and got just beat down 41-10, something like that. Again, Kansas City is not Baltimore offensively. Baltimore is like
right.
Detroit. They can go out there and um, really beat the brakes off of you. So I really like those. I think Atlanta continues to win against New Orleans. I think that the New Orleans year could get even worse with all. I mean, they got going on with Derek Carr
Yeah,
and old receivers. Lions keep rolling. So yeah, I like those picks.
yeah. Cool, cool. Well, with that, the Star Command is out.